It was my daughter's birthday, and I got home early with her favorite cake. I knocked on the door with a smile, waiting to see her face light up like when she was a girl. But when she opened it, her expression was completely annoyed, as if she didn't want to see me. "Oh, it's you," she murmured, without even looking me in the eye. I still remember the smell of the almond cake with chocolate ganache that I took to my daughter Emily's house that afternoon. It was her 43rd birthday, and I had saved 3 months of my retirement to buy that little work of art from the gourmet French bakery that she liked so much. $2,200 that I didn't have, but that I spent with pleasure to see her smile. The taxi dropped me off in front of the mansion that I had helped finance 5 years ago. A 3-story house in the best neighborhood of Miami, with a view of the ocean and an infinity pool. $1,800,000 of my savings for the down payment. Money that I had saved penny by penny for 45 years as a university professor, working extra hours and tutoring on weekends. I put on my turquoise dress, also new for the occasion, and rang the bell, balancing the cake in one hand and holding in the other a small silver package that contained a pearl necklace that had belonged to my mother. 3 generations of strong women, I thought. What a wonderful legacy to pass on. The door opened, but Emily's face did not light up as I expected. Her eyes barely met mine before returning to the cell phone in her hand. "Oh, it's you," she murmured, turning to one side so that I could enter. Not a kiss, not a hug, as if I were just another delivery. "Happy birthday, my dear," I said, trying to keep the enthusiasm in my voice. "I brought your favorite cake and a special gift." Emily sighed deeply, as if my presence were a nuisance that she was forced to tolerate. "Put it on the table in the kitchen. I need to finish this call." I walked alone to the Italian marble kitchen, another gift of mine when the house was renovated, and placed the cake delicately on the counter. Through the window, I saw the twins, my 11-year-old grandchildren, playing in the pool with the swimming instructor. They didn't even notice my presence. I stood there, listening to the echo of the empty house, feeling like a stranger invading a space where I was clearly not welcome. 15 minutes later, Emily entered the kitchen. She was dazzling, as always. Perfectly dyed hair, impeccable makeup, flawless nails. All this at the expense of the aesthetics clinic that I had financed 8 years ago. $350,000 for her to realize her entrepreneurial dream. A loan that I had taken out, using my apartment as collateral, and that was never repaid. "So," she said, opening the refrigerator and taking out a bottle of sparkling water, "did you just come to leave the cake, or are you staying for dinner too?" The coldness in her voice cut me like a knife. I swallowed, trying to control the disappointment. "I thought that maybe we could spend time together on your birthday. We haven't seen each other in almost 2 months." She replied, checking her cell phone again. "Actually, I have plans for later. Michael is going to take me to dinner at the waterfront grill. Just the 2 of us." Michael, her third husband, a man who lived on investments, never specified, and who, curiously, always needed my financial help for his emergency projects. The last one had been only 3 weeks ago, $60,000 for a supposed import business that couldn't wait. Money that I had taken out of my savings for medical treatment. "I understand," I replied, trying to hide the pain in my voice. "Maybe we can have lunch tomorrow then?" Emily rolled her eyes and finally looked at me directly. Her face was tense, as if she were containing something that she had wanted to say for a long time. "Mum, we need to talk." She pointed to the high stools around the kitchen island. "Sit down." I obeyed, feeling a knot forming in my stomach. I knew that tone. It was the same one she used as a child before saying something deliberately cruel to test my limits. "I've been thinking a lot lately," she began, slowly turning the glass of water between her fingers. About my birthday, about life, about what would really make me happy. I nodded, trying to seem encouraging. Of course, dear. Tell me what you want. Maybe I can help in some way. Emily put the glass on the table with a deafening thud and looked me directly in the eyes. What I saw there made my bones freeze. It wasn't love, not even temporary irritation. It was pure contempt. The only thing I would really like to receive as a birthday gift, she said slowly, pronouncing each word with deliberate cruelty, is for you to simply disappear from my life. Preferably for you to die. The world stopped. The air was sucked out of the room. I tried to speak, but my throat closed. It was as if someone had physically hit me in the chest. What? Was all I could whisper. You heard me, she continued, now with a calculated coldness. I'm tired of you, Mum. Tired of your constant calls, of your unexpected visits, of your way of always meddling in my life with your outdated advice and your unbearable emotional need. My hands began to tremble uncontrollably. 74 years of life, 43 years being her mother. And never, ever did I imagine that I would hear such words coming out of the mouth of my only daughter. Emily, I managed to say between tears that were beginning to form. I am your mother. I gave you everything. I sacrificed everything for you. Exactly, she exclaimed, rising from the stool. That's why you're suffocating me. I can't breathe with your constant presence. I need space. I need freedom. I need to live my life without having to deal with your expectations and your emotional drama. I looked at the birthday cake, the candles still in the box, waiting to be lit. Everything I had imagined for that day, hugs, laughs, shared memories, vanished like smoke. But Emily, I tried once more, I just want to be close to you, be part of your life. You are all I have. And that is exactly the problem, she answered, crossing her arms. The fact that I am all you have. Fix your own life and leave me alone. I got up from the stool. My legs were shaking so much that I was afraid I would fall. I took my bag and the little package with the pearl necklace. The cake would stay. Maybe the twins would appreciate it, even if their mother couldn't. I can't believe you're telling me this, I murmured. After everything I did for you. Everything you did? She laughed sarcastically. Mum, everything you did was for your own benefit, to feel necessary, to have control over my life. But I am no longer a child, and I no longer need you suffocating me. I walked to the door, each step costing me years of life. At the threshold, I turned around one last time, hoping to see some regret in her eyes. Some trace of that sweet little girl I had raised with so much love. But I only saw impatience. Impatience for me to leave so she could continue with her life, free of the burden that I apparently represented. Happy birthday, Emily, I whispered, and I left, gently closing the door behind me. What my daughter didn't know, while watching me leave that sunny afternoon, is that she had lit something within me that had remained dormant for decades. A flame that was not of self-destruction, but of rebirth. The taxi dropped me off in front of my small apartment in the city centre. A modest two-bedroom place that I had bought with the money from the sale of the family home after my husband's death, 20 years ago. I walked in, trembling. I dropped the bag on the floor and collapsed on the worn sofa. The same sofa where I had rocked baby Emily, where I had read her stories every night, where I had dried her tears after every disappointment. Her words resonated in my mind like a cruel chorus. May you die. My own daughter had wished for my death as a birthday gift. The pain was physical, an overwhelming weight on my chest that made it difficult to breathe. I spent the night awake, remembering every moment, every sacrifice, every penny I had invested in her for 4 decades. When Emily was 5 years old and was diagnosed with severe asthma, I worked extra shifts at the university to pay for specialized treatments that insurance did not cover. It was $18,000 in consultations and medication, money that I got by selling the wedding jewelry my husband had given me. At 16, when she wanted to be an exchange student in Europe, I mortgaged this same apartment to pay the $250,000 for the program. "Thank you, Mummy," she had told me at that moment, hugging me tight at the airport. "You are simply the best mother in the world." Words that now seemed to belong to another life, another person. At the university, when Emily decided to change majors 3 times, from law to architecture, then to business, I paid every semester without a single complaint. In total, it was almost $480,000. Money that I got by teaching extra classes on weekends and holidays, sacrificing any personal life I could have had. When she married her first husband, an extravagant ceremony for 300 guests at the best hotel in the city, it was me who paid for everything. $420,000. The designer dress, imported flowers, the orchestra, the gourmet banquet. "It is the happiest day of my life, Mum," she had said, radiant in her princess dress. "And all thanks to you." The divorce came 2 years later, followed by an even more expensive second marriage, which also ended in less than 3 years. And then Michael, the current husband. The 3-story house, the aesthetic clinic, the luxury car that I helped finance when the old one broke down, $220,000. Bilingual private schools for the twins, $48,000 per semester. At dawn, I began to do the math. I found an old box where I kept all the receipts, all the transfer certificates, all the contracts I had signed over the years. Not out of distrust, but out of organization. An old math professor never loses her habits. Sitting at the kitchen table, with a cup of cold tea that I had no desire to drink, I began to list each value, each date, each reason. The total left me astonished. More than $4,800,000 over 43 years. Almost $5 million that I had dedicated to my daughter's happiness. And all that to hear that her greatest desire was my death. Something strange happened while I was looking at those numbers. The searing pain that I had felt all night began to transform into something different. Not anger, although there was anger too, but a crystalline clarity that I had never experienced before. A profound understanding that I had been manipulated for decades by someone who saw my love as a utility, not as a sacred bond. If I had invested those almost $5 million in myself, if I had traveled, studied more, bought a better house, taken care of my health, planned a comfortable retirement, where would I be now? Certainly not in this small apartment, counting the cents of my reduced retirement, postponing medical treatments to be able to continue helping a daughter who desired my death. At 6 in the morning, I did something I had never done before. I took the phone and blocked Emily's number. Then I blocked Michael's. Then all the numbers associated with her family. It was a small gesture, but symbolically powerful. My first act of self-preservation in 4 decades. I took a long bath, put on my best clothes, a pantsuit that I rarely used to save money, and left home with a definite purpose that did not involve my daughter for the first time in years. First stop, the bank. The same bank where Emily and I had a joint account for emergencies, in which I regularly deposited small sums for any unforeseen event that might arise in her life. An account that, at that time, had a balance of $180,000. "Good morning, Mrs. Catherine." The manager, Mr. Thompson, who had known me for years, greeted me. "How can I help you today?" I want to close joint account number 4N5267891, I replied calmly, which surprised even me. Are you sure? That account has a considerable balance, he warned, consulting the computer. Absolutely sure, I confirmed, signing the forms with a firm hand. I want to transfer all that money to my personal account, please. Seeing that $180,000 returned to my own account gave me a strange feeling of power, a power that I had not felt for decades. It was just the beginning. Next stop, the mortgage office. When Emily and Michael bought the mansion in front of the ocean, I not only gave the down payment, but I also co-signed the loan. That meant that if they could not pay, the responsibility would fall on me. But it also meant that I had rights over that property. Mrs. Catherine, the loan officer, Ms. Davis, received me with a smile. What brings you here today? I want to review the terms of the mortgage contract where I appear as a co-signer, I explained. I need to understand exactly what my rights and obligations are. While she was looking for the documents, I remembered the day I signed those papers. Emily had cried with emotion. Thank you, Mum. You are our guardian angel. I love you so much, she had said, hugging me tightly. Michael had also thanked me profusely, assuring me that they would never miss a payment. Here is all the documentation, said Ms. Davis, placing a thick folder in front of me. As a co-signer, you are responsible for the payments if the primary owners cannot make them. But you also have the right to claim the property if you believe that the debtors will not be able to fulfill their obligations. Exactly, I replied, carefully examining each page. What would be the next steps if I decided to exercise my rights as a co-signer? You would need to show that there is a risk of non-compliance, or that there have already been significant delays, she explained. What Ms. Davis did not know, and what Emily had unconsciously revealed to me the week before, was that Michael had recently lost a substantial sum in a failed investment, and that they had missed the last mortgage payment. Information that she shared casually, probably hoping that I would offer help, as I always did. Perfect, I murmured, collecting copies of all the important documents. And if I wanted to start that process? Ms. Davis looked at me curiously, but maintained her professionalism. I can schedule a meeting with our legal department if you wish. Please do. When I left the office, I felt a strange lightness, as if I were floating on the hot sidewalks of the city. For 43 years, I had lived for Emily. I had sacrificed my own dreams, my money, my time, my health, everything to give her the life she always wanted. And the result? She wanted my death as a birthday gift. My next stop was a place I had not visited for years, the New Horizons travel agency, specializing in new beginnings for seniors. I had kept a brochure of theirs for years, secretly dreaming of possibilities that always seemed out of my reach. Good afternoon, a young advisor named Lucy greeted me. How can I help you? I saw your program on retirees abroad, I answered, sitting comfortably in the chair in front of her desk. I would like complete information on how a 74-year-old woman can start a new life in Italy. The following days were a roller coaster of secret emotions and preparations. Every morning I woke up with a mixture of pain, determination, and something I had not felt for a long time: hope. It was as if I had woken up from a long trance where I lived only to satisfy my daughter's whims, and now, finally, I was living for myself. On Tuesday, my phone rang insistently. It was Emily. I ignored the call. She called me 5 more times, leaving increasingly irritated messages. Mum, I need to talk to you. Mum, are you okay? Why don't you answer? Mum, the twins have a presentation at school on Thursday, and we need you to stay with them later. Mum, I'm starting to worry. The irony did not escape me. The same woman who had wished for my death as a birthday gift was now worried because I did not answer her calls. Not because she missed me or worried about my well-being, but because she needed me for something. On Wednesday, I received a visit from my lifelong neighbor and friend, Dolores, a 70-year-old woman who had silently witnessed all my sacrifices for Emily over the decades. "Catherine," she said, sitting in my living room with a cup of coffee, "you look different. Is something wrong?" I told her everything. Every painful word from Emily's birthday, every detail of the plans I was making. Dolores listened in silence, her eyes gradually filling with tears. "My God, Catherine," she murmured when I finished. "I can't believe Emily said something so cruel after everything you did for her." "The most painful part is that she said it as if it were the most natural thing in the world," I explained. "As if I were just a nuisance in her life that needed to be eliminated." "Are you really going to Italy?" "Yes," I answered firmly. "I already bought the ticket. I'm leaving next week." Dolores held my hands gently. "You know you have all my support, right? What Emily did is unforgivable." "There is something else," I said, lowering my voice. "I'm going to need your help with something very special." I explained my complete plan to her. I wanted Emily to believe that I had died, at least for a while. Dolores would be my accomplice, the person who would find my empty apartment and the farewell letter I would leave. "It's brilliant," Dolores murmured, with an accomplice's smile. "That ungrateful girl is finally going to understand what it means to lose you." "Will you help me?" "Of course, I will. In fact, I think it's exactly what Emily needs to wake up." That night, I worked on the most important letter of my life, the letter that would change everything forever. I wrote and rewrote every word, making sure that I transmitted exactly what I wanted to say. "My dear Emily," I started, "you asked for me to disappear from your life as a birthday gift, and I have decided to grant your wish. When you read this letter, I will be far from here, starting the life I should have lived decades ago, instead of sacrificing everything for you." I kept writing for hours, documenting every penny I had spent on her, every sacrifice I had made, every opportunity I had lost by always being available for her needs. But it was not a bitter letter. It was educational. I wanted her to understand exactly what she had lost. "Along with this letter, you will find all the legal documents I signed this week," I continued. "The change of the will, the cancellation of your supplementary health insurance plan that I paid for, the notification that, as a co-signer of your mortgage, I have decided to exercise my rights due to your recent financial instability, and the closure of all the benefits you received from me." It was an 18-page letter that meticulously detailed everything that would change in her life now that I had disappeared, exactly as she wanted. "Your life will be much easier without me," I concluded, "but it will also be much more expensive. I hope it is worth it." On Thursday, while I was packing my most important belongings into 2 suitcases, I received another call from Emily. Again, I did not answer. She called me 4 more times, leaving increasingly desperate messages. In the last one, her voice sounded genuinely distressed. "Mum, please call me. Something happened. I need your help. The bank called us for an emergency meeting tomorrow about the mortgage. Please call me as soon as you hear this message." So that was it. The bank had already contacted her about my request to review the contract. Reality began to set in. On Friday, Michael appeared at my door. He seemed exhausted and desperate, with deep dark circles and an unshaven beard, a very different image from the always elegant and confident man I knew. "Catherine," he said with a pleading voice, "Emily told me what happened between you two. I know what she said was terrible, even unforgivable. But please do not do this to our family." "Do what?" I asked, feigning innocence. The bank told us that you are starting a process to take the house due to delays in the mortgage. Please, Catherine, it was only 1 month. I had some problems with investments, but I will solve everything, I promise you. It was fascinating. When Emily wanted to get rid of me, I was a nuisance. But when they realized that I controlled the financial pipeline that maintained her luxurious lifestyle, suddenly I was important again. Michael, I said calmly, your wife was very clear with me. My presence in her life is a burden that she no longer wants to bear. I'm just respecting her wishes. But Catherine, you know how Emily is when she's angry. She didn't mean to say that. She didn't mean it, because it sounded quite convincing when she wished for my death as a birthday gift. Michael lowered his head. He knew he had no argument to defend the indefensible. Please, he insisted, give me a chance to fix this. I'll talk to Emily. I'll make her understand how wrong she is. It's too late, I replied, slowly closing the door. Give my grandchildren a kiss for me. Saturday was my last day in that city where I had spent my entire life. I walked through the places that had been important to me, the university, where I taught for 38 years, the park where I took Emily as a child, the church where I married her father. It was my silent farewell to a life that I had lived completely for others. Sunday would begin a life that, finally, I would live for myself. On Sunday morning, Dolores knocked on my door as we had agreed. She brought me fresh coffee and a conspiratorial smile that filled me with energy. Ready for your great escape? She asked, winking. More than ready, I replied, taking my 2 suitcases to the door. Do you have the spare keys to my apartment? Right here, she said, showing the set of keys I had given her the night before. And I also have the letter for Emily and all the documents you're leaving. We had planned everything meticulously. Dolores would wait until Tuesday to go to Emily's and give her the documents, pretending that she had found my empty apartment and was worried about my disappearance. Remember, I told her while we were waiting for the taxi, you have to look genuinely worried. Tell her that I didn't answer the phone for 2 days, that you knocked on my door and I didn't answer, and that when you used the emergency keys, you found the empty apartment and the letter. Don't worry, Catherine. I was a drama teacher for 20 years. It will be the performance of my life, Dolores assured with a mischievous smile. The taxi arrived punctually at 6 in the morning. While the driver was loading my suitcases, I took one last look at my apartment. I had lived there for 15 years, but strangely I did not feel nostalgic. It was as if I was finally being released from a prison I had built myself. To the airport? Asked the taxi driver. To the airport, I confirmed, and I felt as if those 3 words marked the beginning of my new existence. The flight to Florence was long, but peaceful. For the first time in decades, nobody knew where I was. Nobody could call me to ask for favors, money, or time. It was an intoxicating feeling of freedom that I had not experienced since before I became a mother. During the flight of almost 12 hours, I wrote in my diary everything that had happened in the last week. Every detail, every emotion, every decision that had brought me to that moment, suspended in the sky, between my past of denial and my future of self-discovery. This is the first time in 43 years, I wrote, that I am doing something completely for myself, without calculating how it will benefit Emily. It is terrifying and liberating at the same time. I arrived in Florence on Monday morning, local time. A representative from the travel agency was waiting for me at the airport with a sign with my name. He was a young and kind man named Miguel, who spoke English with a strong Italian accent. Mrs. Catherine, he greeted me with a genuine smile. Welcome to Italy. I hope you are ready for a new adventure. More than ready, I replied. And for the first time in weeks, my smile was completely authentic. Miguel took me to a small but charming apartment in the Oltrarno district, which the agency had rented for a month, while I decided if I wanted to stay permanently. It was a third-floor apartment in a centuries-old building, with windows facing a tree-lined square and flowery balconies on the neighboring buildings. "Here you have all the information about the city," said Miguel, giving me a thick folder. "Recommended restaurants, cultural activities, social groups for expatriates, Italian classes, medical contacts in case you need them. I also scheduled a meeting with a financial advisor for Wednesday to help you with the paperwork if you decide to stay permanently." That afternoon, after a short rest, I did something I hadn't done in years. I went out for a walk without a definite destination. No schedules, no commitments, no one waiting for me to solve their problems. I walked through the narrow and winding streets of the Oltrarno district, amazed by the Renaissance architecture, the small cafes on the corners, the artisan shops. I sat down in a square and ordered a cappuccino and a cannoli. I ate slowly, savoring each bite, observing the pigeons, the tourists, the locals. A strange feeling began to form in my chest. It wasn't sadness. It wasn't guilt. It was peace. As I walked back to the apartment at the end of the afternoon, I mentally calculated how much money I had spent on Emily in just the last 5 years. Between the house mortgage, the payments for the aesthetic clinic, the car, the twins' schools, the constant emergencies, it had been at least $2.3 million. Money that I could have used to travel the world, to live comfortably, to fulfill the dreams I had postponed for decades. Instead, I gave it all to a daughter who considered my love a burden and my presence a hindrance. At 8 o'clock in the evening, Florence time, I calculated that it would be 2 in the afternoon in Miami. Dolores would be getting ready to go to Emily's apartment to deliver the letter that would change everything. I sat down on the small balcony of my temporary apartment, drinking a glass of Italian red wine, and waited. I knew that in a few hours, my phone would start ringing desperately. Emily would finally understand what it really meant to lose me. At midnight, my phone began to vibrate insistently. It was Emily. I let it ring until it stopped. It immediately rang again, and again, and again. On the 5th try, I answered. "Mom!" she shouted, her voice choked with tears. "Where are you? Dolores showed up at the house with a letter from you. She said you disappeared. What's going on? What is this madness?" "Hello, Emily," I answered calmly, watching the lights of the old city as she spoke. "Did you read the letter?" "Yes, I read it. Have you gone crazy? How could you do this to us? Where are you?" "I'm exactly where I need to be. Far from you. As you wished." "But I didn't mean that. I didn't want you to really leave. I was just angry, frustrated." There it was, Emily's typical tactic. To minimize the damage she had caused. To make me feel guilty for reacting to her cruelty. "You didn't mean it when you told me that your biggest birthday wish was for me to die," I asked, "because you sounded quite convincing." I was just stressed. Michael lost money in an investment. The children are having trouble at school. The clinic is not doing well. I shouldn't have taken it out on you." "You're right. You shouldn't have. But you did. Words can't be unsaid." "But Mum, please come back. We need you. I need you." How interesting. Now she needed me. Now that she had read the letter detailing all the financial benefits she had lost. Now that she knew she could lose the house. Now that she understood that she would have to pay for her own supplementary health insurance and figure out who would take care of the twins when she wanted to go out. "Do you need me or my money?" I asked directly. There was a long silence on the other side of the line. "I need you," she finally murmured, but her voice didn't sound convincing. "Emily, for 43 years I lived for you. I sacrificed my dreams, my money, my time, my opportunities. And when I finally needed to feel that you loved and valued me, you told me that you preferred me to be dead. Those words broke my heart in a way that I will never be able to repair. I'm so sorry, Mum. I'm really sorry. Apologies are not enough, Emily. The damage is done. And you know something? Maybe it was the best thing you could have said to me, because it finally opened my eyes and made me understand that I have lived my whole life in the wrong way. What do you mean? I mean that for the first time in decades, I am living for myself, and it is wonderful. Where are you, Mum? Please tell me, Emily implored, her voice drowned by tears. The twins are asking about Grandma. They don't understand why you disappeared. It was fascinating how, now that I was not available, my grandchildren suddenly missed me. During all those years, when I cancelled my plans to take care of them, when I bought them expensive gifts, when I took them to the park while Emily went shopping, it was just what was expected of me. But now that I had left, my absence was felt. The children will be fine, I replied, looking at the stars over Florence. They are resilient. What they will learn is that actions have consequences and that painful words can destroy relationships forever. But Mum, please, you can't just disappear like that. What if something happens to you? What if you get sick? How are we going to know? Now she was worried about my well-being. How convenient. Emily, in the last 3 years, I had 2 episodes of high blood pressure that sent me to the hospital. Do you know how many times you visited me? None. You always had something more important to do. That's not true, she protested weakly. It's true. The first time I called you from the emergency room, you said you couldn't come because you had a party at a friend's house. The second time was Michael's birthday, and you were celebrating. The silence on the other side of the line confirmed that she remembered every occasion perfectly. I thought it wasn't serious, she murmured. Of course, because my health was never a priority for you. But my checks were. It's not about the money, Emily shouted. It's about you. I miss you, Mum. Do you miss me? Or do you miss having someone available 24 hours a day to solve your problems? I hung up without waiting for an answer. The phone rang again, but this time I silenced it completely. I needed peace to enjoy my first night of freedom in a new country. The following days were a constant discovery, not only of Florence, but of myself. There were parts of my personality, interests and desires that had been dormant for decades while I was living as Emily's mum. Now they were awakening, one by one, like flowers after a long drought. I discovered that I loved Renaissance architecture and could spend hours admiring the details of the Duomo. I realized that I had a natural talent for languages and that Italian was not as difficult as I imagined. I rediscovered my love for mathematics, something I had taught for years, but hadn't practiced for pleasure for a long time. On Wednesday, I had my meeting with the Italian financial advisor. He was an older man named Mr. Miller, who helped me understand all my options for permanent residence in Italy. With your current savings and your American Social Security and pension, he explained, you can live comfortably here for many years. Italy has excellent health programs for foreign retirees, and the quality of life in Florence is exceptional. For the first time in years, I spoke openly about my finances without worrying about saving money for Emily's emergencies. It was liberating to calculate my expenses based solely on my own needs and desires. You can also invest part of your savings here in Italy, continued Mr. Miller. The returns are stable and secure. In 5 years, you could significantly increase your assets if you invest wisely. Increase my assets. How many times had I had that opportunity? But I always preferred to spend money on my daughter's whims. Is there anything else I should know? I asked. We have many clients in situations similar to yours, added the advisor with a compassionate smile. Older people who came to Italy looking for a new beginning after complicated family relationships. You are not alone in this experience. That information comforted me deeply. I was not the only mother who had been manipulated and discarded by ungrateful children. There was a whole community of people who had chosen their own happiness over the toxic demands of their families. On Friday, I joined a walking group for senior expatriates. There were 12 people, all between 65 and 80 years old, all looking for adventure and new experiences. During the walk through the hills surrounding Florence, I began a conversation with a woman named Louise, a 76-year-old Italian-American who had arrived in Italy 3 years earlier. "What brought you here?" she asked, as we admired the panoramic view of the city. "A daughter who told me her greatest birthday wish was for me to die," I answered bluntly. I no longer had the energy to soften reality. Louise looked at me with wide eyes. "Are you serious?" "Completely. After financing her house, practically raising her children, and sacrificing my retirement for her needs, she told me my presence in her life was an unbearable burden." "My goodness," Louise murmured. "And what did you do?" "What else? I disappeared from her life. And here I am." Louise smiled with admiration. "You are very brave. It took me 7 years to make the decision to get away from my toxic family. My son and daughter-in-law treated me like a walking ATM." During the rest of the walk, Louise and I shared our stories. She had come to Italy after realizing that her adult children only contacted her when they needed money for their vacations, their new cars, or their whims. When she decided to set limits, they accused her of being a selfish mother and threatened to not let her see her grandchildren. "The first months were difficult," Louise confessed, as we descended a wooded path. "The guilt consumed me. I thought that maybe I really was selfish, that a good mother should always sacrifice for her children." "And what changed your perspective?" "I realized that my children never asked if I was happy, if I had enough money for my own needs, or if my constant sacrifices were hurting me. They only cared about what I could give them. That's not love, Catherine. It's exploitation." Her words resonated deeply in my heart. For decades, I had confused emotional manipulation with filial love, constant demands with genuine need. At the end of the walk, Louise invited me to a support group that met bi-weekly, older women who had made the difficult decision to prioritize their well-being over toxic family expectations. I accepted immediately. That night, I turned on my phone for the first time in 3 days. I had 78 missed calls and 32 text messages. Most were from Emily and Michael, but there were also some from unknown numbers, probably friends they had recruited to try to locate me. I read the messages chronologically, observing the evolution of my daughter's panic. The first ones were still emotional. "Please, Mom, come back. We need you. The kids are crying for you." But gradually they became more desperate and focused on financial issues. "The bank called us for another meeting. They say you requested a review of the contract as a co-signer. They can't take our house because of a misunderstanding." By the fourth day, the messages had become aggressive. "This is ridiculous, Mum. You're ruining our lives over a temper tantrum. Act like an adult and come back." And finally, desperate. "I called all the hospitals, the police, your friends. Nobody knows where you are. If something happens to you, it's going to be my fault. Please, just tell me you're okay." It was fascinating to observe how at no point did Emily genuinely apologize for wishing me dead. At no point did she acknowledge the cruelty of her words or express real remorse. Everything revolved around the negative consequences my absence had for her. I decided to reply to one last message. "I am perfectly fine and happier than I have been in years. What you are experiencing now are the natural consequences of your actions. I hope this experience helps you understand the value of the people you love before it's too late with others in your life." The reply came immediately. Please, Mum, we can fix this. I promise I'll never say horrible things again. Just come back. I wrote my final response. Empty promises don't fix broken hearts. Emily, the words you said to me revealed what you really think of me. You can't undo that truth with desperate promises. After sending that message, I blocked her number and all numbers associated with Michael. I also blocked the unknown numbers that had called me. It was time to close this chapter once and for all. In the following week, I met again with Mr. Miller to sign the papers that would allow me to reside permanently in Italy. I also made arrangements to definitively transfer my pension and Social Security and begin the process of selling my apartment in Miami. Are you sure you want to make it permanent? Asked Mr. Miller. It's a very significant decision. I have never been more sure of anything in my life, I replied, signing each document with a steady hand. For the first time in decades, I am making decisions based on my own happiness, not on the demands of others. That afternoon, I received a call from Dolores, my dear neighbour and accomplice. Her voice sounded lively. Catherine, you're not going to believe this, she said. Emily came to my apartment yesterday crying hysterically. She begged me to tell you to come back, that it had all been a terrible misunderstanding. And what did you tell her? I told her the truth, that what she said to you was unforgivable, and that if I were you, I would have disappeared forever too. You should have seen her face when she realized that even the neighbors knew how cruel she had been to you. Did she mention anything about the financial problems? Oh, yes. She said that without your help, they can't pay the mortgage, that the bank is putting pressure on them, that Michael can't solve the financial situation, and that the kids need things for school that they can't afford. Basically, she realized everything you did for them now that she's lost it. It was exactly what I expected. She didn't miss me as a person. She missed my function as a financial provider and problem solver. Dolores, I asked, when anyone asks about me, especially Emily, I want you to say that I am dead to them, because in a way, it's true. The Catherine who constantly sacrificed for an ungrateful daughter really did die on her birthday. I understand perfectly, Dolores replied. And you know something? I think it's the best death you could have chosen. 3 weeks after my arrival in Italy, my new life had taken shape in ways I never imagined. I enrolled in Italian classes 3 times a week. I started a watercolor course on Tuesdays and Thursdays, discovering an artistic talent I never knew I possessed. I joined a book club for expatriates that met on Sundays. For the first time in decades, my schedule was filled with activities that I had chosen. Activities that brought me pleasure and personal growth, not obligations imposed by the needs of others. But the most surprising transformation was financial. Without Emily's constant demands, my savings weren't just stable. They were growing. The investments I had made with Mr. Miller were already showing positive returns. And for the first time, I could plan my financial future based solely on my own needs. That April Wednesday, while having my morning coffee on the sunny balcony of my apartment, I received a call from an international number I didn't recognize. I hesitated to answer, but curiosity won. Mrs. Catherine? Asked a female voice with an American accent. Yes, this is she. Who is calling? My name is Rachel Miller. I'm a social worker with the Department of Family Services in Miami. I'm calling because we received a report concerning your well-being. My blood ran cold. A report? What kind of report? Your daughter, Emily, filed a report alleging that you might be suffering from dementia or cognitive decline, and that you have made financial and life decisions that put you at risk. According to her, you disappeared suddenly and are living in precarious conditions abroad, possibly under the influence of third parties. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Emily had gone to the extreme of involving social services, inventing a mental illness to invalidate my decisions and force my return. Ms. Miller, I replied in a firm voice, I am not suffering from dementia or cognitive decline. I am living in Italy by my own choice, in a comfortable apartment, with excellent medical care, and in perfect mental health. My daughter's allegations are completely false. I understand your position, Mrs. Catherine, but we need to verify your well-being. Would it be possible to coordinate a medical and psychological evaluation through the US consulate in Italy? Of course, I replied without hesitation. I am willing to undergo any evaluation that proves I am in perfect mental health and that my decisions were made with complete lucidity. After coordinating the details for the evaluation, I hung up the phone, feeling a mixture of rage and disbelief. Emily had crossed a line of no return. Not only had she wished for my death, but now she was trying to destroy my mental credibility to regain control over my money and my life. Immediately, I called my lawyer in the US, Mr. Hayes, who had helped me with all the legal procedures before my departure. Catherine, he greeted me with concern. I'm glad to hear your voice. I've had a very interesting week with your daughter. I can imagine. I just spoke with social services. Emily is accusing me of having dementia. That's not all, sighed Mr. Hayes. She also hired another lawyer to try to contest all the legal changes you made before you left. She's alleging that you were not of sound mind when you signed them. Can she do that? She can try, but she doesn't have a solid legal basis. I have recordings of all our conversations, where you clearly demonstrate complete lucidity. Besides, the fact that you meticulously planned your departure and are living independently in Italy contradicts any allegation of cognitive decline. What else is she doing? She tried to get access to your bank accounts, claiming concern for your well-being. She also wanted to stop the process of claiming the house. But since everything is legally sound, and she herself signed documents acknowledging recent financial problems, she has no valid arguments. It was incredible how far Emily was willing to go to recover the financial benefits she had lost. Mr. Hayes, I want you to prepare a defamation lawsuit against my daughter. Her false allegations about my mental state could affect my reputation and my legal rights. It will be a pleasure, he replied with satisfaction. After seeing how she treated you, I think it's time she faced the legal consequences of her actions. 2 days later, I appeared at the US consulate in Florence for the medical and psychological evaluations. The appointed doctor, Dr. Evans, was an experienced man who immediately understood the situation. Mrs. Catherine, he told me after an exhaustive 3-hour evaluation, not only are you in perfect mental health, but the decisions you have made demonstrate admirable lucidity and courage. Your daughter is clearly trying to manipulate the legal system to recover financial benefits. Will that be documented officially? Absolutely. I will send a detailed report to social services explaining that the allegations are unfounded and that you are living an independent and healthy life in Italy. That same afternoon, I received a call from the social worker. Mrs. Catherine, we received the medical report from the consulate. It is evident that your daughter's allegations have no basis. We are going to close the case and notify Emily that her complaints have been deemed unfounded. Thank you, I replied. Will this be recorded in any way? Yes. It will be documented that she made a false report about a family member's well-being, which could have legal implications if it is repeated. Perfect. Not only had Emily failed in her attempt to invalidate my decisions, but now she had an official record of having made false reports. That night, I decided to do something I had been putting off. I wrote a detailed account of my experience, not for Emily, but for other women who might be living in similar situations of manipulation and emotional abuse by adult children. I wrote for 4 hours, documenting every sacrifice I had made, every manipulation I had suffered and every step I had taken to reclaim my dignity and my life. I titled the text, "When a Mother's Love Becomes Self-Destruction, My Story of Liberation at 74. I sent the text to a blog I had discovered, specializing in stories of older women who had found the courage to radically change their lives. A week later, I received an enthusiastic response from the editor. "Catherine," she wrote, "your story is powerful and inspiring. We've received hundreds of comments from women who completely identify with your experience. Would you be willing to participate in a video interview for our YouTube channel?" I accepted immediately. It was time to use my experience to help other women trapped in toxic family dynamics. The interview was published 2 weeks later and quickly went viral. Thousands of women shared similar stories of adult children who emotionally manipulated and financially exploited them. The comments were a catalogue of pain and recognition. "My 37-year-old son lives in my house, pays no rent, and insults me when I ask him to look for a job," wrote one woman. "My daughter only calls me when she needs money for vacation, but never has time to visit me when I'm sick," shared another. "I thought I was the only mother who felt used by her own children," confessed a third. But the most shocking thing came a week after the interview was published. I received an email from an address I immediately recognized. It was from Michael, my son-in-law. "Catherine," he wrote, "I saw your interview on YouTube. I need you to know that I completely agree with you. What Emily said was unforgivable, and the way she has treated you for years is unacceptable. I witnessed how she manipulated and used you, but I never had the courage to confront her because we were so dependent on your financial help." He continued, "I want you to know that the twins miss you very much and don't understand why you don't come to see them anymore. Emily told them you are sick and can't visit, but I believe they deserve to know the truth when they are older." The email ended, "I know it's probably too late for apologies, but I wanted you to know that at least one person in this family recognizes how much you sacrificed for us. I hope you are happy in your new life." I read the email 3 times before deciding how to respond. Finally, I wrote, "Michael, I appreciate your honesty, but late apologies do not change the damage done. I hope this experience helps you to be a better husband and father, and that you teach your children to value the people who love them before it is too late." It was the first time that someone in my family had publicly acknowledged the abuse I had suffered. It didn't change my decision to keep my distance, but it gave me a sense of validation that I had needed for years. My new life in Italy was flourishing in unimaginable ways. I had genuine friends who valued me for who I was, not for what I could give. I rediscovered hobbies and passions. I had peace of mind and financial stability, and most importantly, I had dignity. 6 months after my arrival in Italy, my life had taken a shape I never dreamed possible. It was a sunny spring morning when I received a call that would change everything once again. It was Dolores, my dear neighbor and accomplice in the US. "Catherine," she said in an animated voice, "you have to hear this. Emily lost the house." My heart stopped for a second. Despite everything, a part of me still worried about my grandchildren's well-being. "What happened exactly?" I asked. "The bank foreclosed last week. Michael couldn't recover the money he lost. They fell behind on 3 more payments. And since you were the co-signer and exercised your legal rights, the bank proceeded with the foreclosure. Emily came to me yesterday, crying desperately." "And the children?" "They're fine. They moved to a small apartment on the other side of the city. Michael finally got a steady job at a tourism company, earning much less than before. But at least it's something secure. Emily also had to go back to work at the clinic, not as the owner, but as an employee." It was a strange mix of feelings I experienced. I didn't feel joy at their suffering, but a deep sense of justice. For the first time in their lives, Emily and Michael were living with the real consequences of their decisions, without having someone to rescue them. "There's something else," Dolores continued. "Emily asked me if I knew how to contact you. She said she wants to apologize genuinely, that she finally understands everything she lost when she lost you." "And what did you tell her?" "I said that some wounds are too deep to heal, and that some words can never be unsaid. I also said that you are thriving in your new life, and that it's probably better for both of you if she doesn't try to contact you." Dolores was right. Over these 6 months, I had built an inner peace that I didn't want to risk for the empty promises of a daughter who had repeatedly shown that she only valued me when she needed me. That afternoon, I received an unexpected call from Mr. Hayes. "Catherine, I have interesting news," he said. "Emily's house was sold by the bank, and as you were the co-signer, you have the right to recover your initial investment of $1.8 million, plus accrued interest." "How much is that in total?" $2.1 million. The bank has already approved the transfer. The money will be in your Italian account next week." It was incredible. Not only had I recovered my original investment, but I had gained an additional $300,000. Money that would have been lost forever if I had continued to be the eternally sacrificial mother. "There's one more thing," continued Mr. Hayes. "Your apartment in Miami has finally been sold. After commissions and expenses, the net value is $820,000. In total, I was receiving almost $3 million in assets that I had considered lost. With my existing savings and the investments I had made in Italy, my net worth now exceeded $5 million. At 74 years old, I was richer than I had ever been in my entire life." That night, I celebrated at my favorite restaurant in the Piazza della Signoria. I ordered the best Prosecco and toasted the brave woman who had the courage to start over when all seemed lost. As I dined, I reflected on the whole journey. I had started this journey as a broken and humiliated mother, devastated by the cruel words of an ungrateful daughter. But now I was an independent, financially stable woman, surrounded by genuine friends and living the life I had always dreamed of. The next day, I decided to do something I had been considering for weeks: write a full book about my experience. Not just my story, but a practical guide for older women trapped in toxic family relationships. I contacted an Italian publisher that specialized in self-help and personal growth books. The editor, a woman named Elizabeth, was immediately interested. "Catherine," she told me during our meeting, "your story touches on a subject that affects millions of women, but is rarely discussed openly. Emotional abuse by adult children is an epidemic problem that needs to be exposed." I spent the next 3 months writing When Love Hurts, Freeing Yourself from Family Emotional Abuse After 70. The book documented not only my personal experience, but also practical strategies for recognizing manipulation, setting healthy boundaries, and finding the courage to prioritize one's own well-being. The book was published 8 months later and became a bestseller in several countries in Europe and Latin America. The letters I received from readers were extraordinary. Women from all over the world wrote to me, telling me how my story had given them the courage to make radical changes in their own lives. "I read your book and finally understood that I am not a bad mother for refusing to continue financing my 42-year-old son's irresponsibility," wrote Martha from Chile. "Your story helped me understand that true love does not demand self-destruction," shared Teresa from Portugal. "After reading your book, I sold my large house and moved into a small apartment I can afford without depending on my children's help. For the first time in years, I sleep peacefully," related Sophia from Argentina. But the letter that moved me the most arrived a year after the book's publication. It was from a young mother named Paula. "Mrs. Catherine," she wrote, "I am 32 years old and have a 67-year-old mother who has sacrificed her entire life for me and my siblings. After reading your book, I realized that we are treating her exactly as Emily treated you. Your story opened my eyes and made me understand that I was repeating a toxic pattern that could destroy my relationship with my mother forever. Yesterday, I called my mother and apologized for all the years of taking her for granted. I also told her that I want to help her realize her own dreams instead of expecting her to always be available for mine. Thank you for helping me understand this before it was too late. That letter made me cry with joy. My pain had served to prevent other families from going through the same destruction. 2 years after my arrival in Italy, I received a physical letter in my mailbox. The handwriting on the envelope was familiar, but I couldn't place it immediately. When I opened it, my heart sped up. It was from my grandchildren, now 13 years old. Dear Grandma Catherine, they wrote in teenage script. Dad told us the truth about why you left. He said that Mum said very cruel things to you, and that's why you decided to start a new life far away from us. We want you to know that we miss you very much, and that we understand why you left. We also want you to know that we are proud of you for being so brave. When we are older, we would like to visit you in Italy if you would have us. The letter included drawings they had made of me living happily in the streets of Florence. I cried for an hour after reading that letter. Not out of sadness, but from the understanding that my decision to preserve my dignity had been the right one, even if it meant moving away from people I loved. I decided to write back to them. My dearest grandchildren, I wrote, your words are the most beautiful gift I have received in years. I love you deeply and will always love you no matter the distance. When you are older and can make your own decisions, the doors of my heart and my home will always be open to you. Until then, I want you to know that Grandma is living a full and happy life, surrounded by beauty and peace. Hold on to the love you feel for me, but also learn from this experience. Words have the power to build or destroy, and relationships are based on mutual respect, not on one-sided sacrifice. I love you with all my heart. Today, 3 years after that terrible birthday that changed my life forever, I am sitting on the balcony of my new apartment in Florence that I bought with my own money, looking out at the Tuscan hills as I write the last lines of my story. I am 77 years old, with a net worth of over $6 million, a best-selling book translated into 8 languages, dear friends from all over the world, and an inner peace I never thought I would experience again. Emily asked me to disappear from her life as a birthday gift. I granted that wish in the most extraordinary way possible. What she never calculated was that, by losing me, she not only lost a mother who loved her unconditionally, but also the person who had kept her financial world stable for decades. Last week, I received an email from Emily, the first direct contact after 3 years. Mum, she wrote, I read your book. I never imagined how much I hurt you, how much you sacrificed for me, how much I took you for granted my entire life. I'm not asking you to come back or to forgive me. I just want you to know that I finally understood what you tried to teach me, albeit in the hardest way. I hope you are happy in your new life, because you deserve all the happiness in the world. I did not reply to the email. Some bridges, once burned, cannot be rebuilt. But I kept her words in my heart, not as a victory, but as a confirmation that all pain can, eventually, transform into wisdom. My disappearance was my gift to her. My new life was my gift to me, and it was worth every tear, every sacrifice, every moment of pain that brought me here. Because sometimes the only way to save yourself is to have the courage to lose yourself completely, only to be reborn as the person you were always meant to be.